Welcome to Founders Future, a podcast powered by Closers.io, where we dive into the journeys of innovative entrepreneurs and explore the road ahead for them and their companies. I'm your host, Jae Encarnacion, and in each episode, we uncover the stories behind impactful ventures, the challenges faced along the way, and the strategies driving their future growth. Today, we are thrilled to have David Fradin, the founder and president of Spice Catalyst. David brings an extraordinary 47 years of product management experience, including pivotal roles at HP and Apple, where he helped launch the first hard disk drive on a PC. Since founding Spice Catalyst in 2012, based in Saratoga, California, he's been empowering organizations like Cisco and Capital One to build insanely great products through training, consulting, and assessments. He's also the author of Building Insanely Great Products. We'll be exploring his remarkable journey, how Spice Catalyst transforms product management, and his vision for scaling this impactful venture. So with that being said, let's dive right into it. David, welcome to Founders Future.
Glad to be with you.
An absolute pleasure and an honor to have you on the show today, David. Really can't wait to dive in for our listeners with you. So with that there, I would love to start at the beginning, if you can. What specific problem in the product management landscape really inspired you to start Spice Catalyst?
I think it's the overall product success. About 35% of all new products introduced each year fail in the
Hmm.
marketplace, which results in a waste to humanity and the planet of about $1 trillion per year. I set out, based upon my experience previously at Hewlett Packard and at Apple, to try and identify those things that are resulting in product failure and
Hmm.
them so the chances for product success can be improved.
Amazing. Amazing. So with that there, then if you could touch a bit on the evolution of the offerings of Spice Catalyst since you first started in 2012 to today, how has what you're offering and who you're serving, how's that evolved to what it is today?
I started out writing some courses on how to write a product market strategy, fundamentals of marketing,
Mm.
social media marketing. Then it evolved into design thinking, innovation, value proposition. And I found that generally developers were targeting their product at too big of a problem, that they didn't have enough granularity, and that is understanding what it is that their customer wants to do, why they want to do it, when they want to do it, where they want to do it, how they want to do it, what's standing in their way, how important is getting that thing done, and how satisfied are they with current solutions. That's a little more granular than the outcome-based innovation that Harvard teaches or jobs to be done taught by Synergym. I believe it needs to be more granular in order to understand what it is that your customer wants to do. That's their problem, and that's what they want to solve. That's what their need is. And if you go more granular, your chances for product success is significantly enhanced.
Amazing. Amazing. I mean, with that, I definitely want to get a really good understanding, especially for our listeners who are, once this episode airs, David could very well want to come and work with you after really understanding what you're bringing to the table here. So, how is Spice Catalyst really generating revenue today, David, especially around your core offer? I know you do some training boot camps, consulting services. If you could really walk us through the core offer there, how it's structured for your clients, and if you could tell us who your ideal client is that you like to work with.
I typically companies pay about $1,000 per day of trading. So my largest income stream is trading, companies like Cisco and others. And then occasionally I get retained as a consultant to work on a specific product that's having a problem.
Amazing. So you're really going after more of enterprise companies for your ideal client, the bigger side. Do you work with smaller businesses as well, or is it really more of the enterprise size?
Yeah, I've worked with startups who have had no revenue. I've worked with $10 million a year, $100 million a year companies, along with the multi-billion-dollar companies.
Incredible. Incredible. Would you have, is there anything along the lines of the kind of the biggest the differentiator for you on where you see more of your business coming from, whether it is more the enterprise or the smaller, or is it all in between?
It's all in between, it's all mixed up.
He's absolutely incredible. So with that, obviously providing that training around the product management side of things and really helping your clients on that front and then consulting as well, what can you attest to on the acquisition side, David? What's working best for you on that front, whether it's the ad side, social media, or referrals from your past successes? And do you have a lever that you can pull for a predictable lead generation model?
In the field of professional consulting, such as what I'm doing, a company has to have a need, and usually that occurs after they've had multiple product failures and they're trying to figure out what's going wrong. And finding those companies that have that need and an urgency and a willingness to pay, because a lot of startups started by their entrepreneurs think they know everything until they completely fail, is it's not an easy thing to do. So generally, it's a referral. Someone has researched on the internet looking for an expert in product success, and they approach me.
Gotcha. Gotcha. So really relying heavily on that referral side. So I would definitely love to hear from you, especially because I've had so many founders on the show, David, that also see a lot of success from referrals. But the big thing there, again, as I mentioned, is the predictability of those leads. So obviously not knowing how many are coming in each month. So how are you approaching the idea of scaling Spice Catalyst, continuing to grow that and have more of a predictable lead flow? Are you working maybe around adding ads into the mix, doing more around social media? How does that look in your mind?
Yeah, I've tried the ad approach and that doesn't work. I've also been retained and have written courses for a company called Appleton Green and bought their marketing, and they've sent out tens of thousands of emails, and that didn't work. But that again was around the COVID time when everyone
Yeah.
was acting like a turtle or an ox
Yeah.
with a head in the sand. And so I just do a lot of social media in terms of these podcasts because that way people can meet me, learn about my credibility and knowledge, and then they reach out to me.
I love it. I love that there. As far as what you're doing, David, are you running Spice Catalyst here as a solopreneur and doing everything on your own, or do you have a sales team, marketing team, assistants with you? What does that kind of team and sales process look like?
It's primarily a solopreneur, but I also have people that do my training for me. I have one fellow in Ohio who used to be VP of product management for Diebold. They're the ones that make the ATM machines.
Oh,
He's a
wow.
former client of mine. And then I have the former vice president of product management training at Infosys in India. And then one of my fellow professors at Manipal University. So the three of them do some of my trainings. The two in India do my trainings in India, South Asia, and in Europe because it's better on the time zone. And then Dean Stewart from Diebold does my trainings virtually in the United States.
Incredible. So I definitely want to get into a bit more of kind of that consulting piece. I know we chatted a bit before we started the podcast and you were talking about the five key principles. But before we get into that, I would love to know, as far as my understanding so far of where you are, where you're trying to take Spice Cattle. It sounds like a bit more on the bottleneck side for you right now, David. Is it going to run that predictability for a lead generation system? So really still trying to get that going for yourself. And then maybe on the sales side as well, right? Putting yourself more in the founder role, maybe getting more of a setter, closer sales team with you so you don't have to worry so much on that. Does that sound like the bottlenecks that you're experiencing right now?
I've had salespeople and they've generally not been successful.
Right.
So I haven't tried to push that wet noodle anymore.
Gotcha.
I found that if I get a qualified lead and get them to the prospect stage of the sales process, I can usually close 90% of them.
Wow. Wow. Incredible. So with that there, definitely knowing you obviously you are the showman here, right? You know exactly what you're bringing to the table, which makes the most sense why that conversion rate is so high. So really more of that predictability, because if you have those predictable quality leads, you know that you can convert them and provide them with that system there. So I would love for you to get into a bit more, as you were mentioning earlier, of that those five key principles, really what you're bringing to the table and teaching, especially for our listeners who maybe aren't too keen on this side of things.
It boils down to the pneumatic that I have for my company name, Spice Catalyst,
Yes.
where the S stands for the 32 elements of a product market strategy. That's a strategy for the product in its market. The P stands for repeatable processes. I had one client that had a number of product failures, and I asked them if they had a repeatable process. And that VP of product management said no, they did it differently each time. And he said the failure to have a repeatable process usually develops a culture of blame. So they would do their after product introduction analysis and they get together in a room and point fingers at each other. The I in SPICE stands for having the information necessary to make informed decisions. The C is understanding your customer, what I talked about earlier, understanding what it is that your customer wants to do. And the E is making sure that your organization has the 130 skill sets or competencies necessary for product success. So if you put the whole spice together, then you're going to have significantly higher chances of your product succeeding in the market.
Amazing. Absolutely amazing. I love that there. So with that, I would definitely love to hear a bit more from you on your vision here for Spice Catalyst, David. Where are you really trying to take this thing, especially for the rest of 2025, going into 2026? Obviously, knowing that there are some bottlenecks that you're trying to break through here and continue to scale. So how does that look in your mind for the rest of the year with any revenue targets, performance goals, impact goals? Paint that picture for us.
I can't really pick a revenue target because it all depends upon getting that large client like Cisco and them running hundreds of people through the training. So as they come along and I'm able to engage them, then from that I can make some revenue projections.
Absolutely. Incredible. Incredible. So really it's just about providing as much high quality as you can for the clients that you have right now. Keep on getting your name out there and just pushing forward with what you're doing now for the rest of the year for that growth to continue. Love it. I love that. I love that. If we were able to get a little bit hypothetical here for our listeners and we were able to snap our fingers and provide you with unlimited resources right now, what is something that you think you would be implementing immediately for that continued growth and scale of Spice Catalyst?
Probably reaching out through my connections on LinkedIn and asking in a soft sale if the things that I have to offer might be of interest to them, be able to engage them in a discussion. Ideally, what I like to have is a customer that would like to have an evaluation first done on the skill sets of their people and on their processes and their ability to implement the development of a product market strategy. And then that would put together a customized training program over the coming year. And then at the end of the year, do the assessment again, modify the program, and continue doing it. That would result in sales of several $100,000 per year per client. So, in an ideal world, I would love to have a couple dozen clients like that.
Incredible. Absolutely incredible. So, as far as the product management industry as a whole goes, especially with how long you've been in the space, can you touch for our listeners a misconception that people often have about the product management industry, especially around its value to organizations or its scalability as a business? What's something there that you can address for us?
Sometimes they get confused between product management and project management. And so it has little to do with project management, even though putting together a product market strategy requires some of that.
Right.
I'll give you an example. Back around 2015, about 7,000 startups in India were funded by their intense interest at that time in startups, entrepreneurship, and so forth. And a lot of angel investors and venture capital firms poured millions of dollars into those 7,000 startups.
Mm.
Within 5 years, they'd all gone out of business,
Wow.
primarily because they didn't understand the role of the little CEO of the product called the product manager. I prefer to call them a product success manager. And the importance of the product manager is to ensure the success of the product for the company. Since then, it has exploded. Wiley, a book publisher in India, has published a little 796-page pamphlet that I wrote called Successful Product Design and Management Toolkit, and it's being used in a graduate executive education programs at two major universities, Lovely Professional University and IIPM, which is a prestigious Harvard Business School in India. And then I just got approached the other day by the Industry Association for Technology Companies in India to put together a similar program to them.
Incredible.
And then just before China cut down on allowing Americans to go there and train, I'd already been there once to train Cisco's product manager in Shanghai. Actually, I think I've been there twice to do that. Uh, China was evaluating that book to be used in all the schools throughout China.
Wow. That is incredibly impressive. Incredibly impressive. So, with that there, and obviously all that you've done and are doing, where do you see the product management industry evolving now in the coming years, especially with everything that it's gone through, and especially with your expertise in agile practices and the customer journey mapping? What are you really doing to continue to keep yourself at the forefront of that evolution that you're picturing?
Doing things like this podcast to help educate more and more people. To thousands of people are watching my podcasts each month. It spreads the word. And the other thing is, been running a mini campaign to change the title from product manager to product success manager. Because as the story I tell is, you go into a cocktail party, you're standing around and you start talking with a nice looking lady, and she asks you, "What do you do?" And I say, "I'm a product manager." And she says, "What's that?" And I say, "What I do is I put together a product market strategy. I understand what the customer wants to do. I identify the target markets, the customer personas, the distribution strategy, the product positioning, the value proposition. I evaluate all the technologies that are coming along that are going to affect the product. I do competitive research. And usually, before I get more than halfway through that, she'll turn and walk away. I made fun of the idea of asking your boss if you could change your title to product success manager. And this is the form of a memo that I have on my Spice Catalyst website
Yeah.
that says, "Hey, boss, can I change my title to product success manager? Because here's the problem." And then I describe the problem. And then if I get married and can have the requisite 2.4 kids, I'll promise you, I'll invite you to the wedding and you could become VP of product success. I told that story in a talk I gave to Samsung in Bangalore, India, back in
Wow.
2018. And the VP of product management came up to me and he said about a half a dozen product managers asked him if they could change their title to product success because apparently they wanted to get married.
I love it. I absolutely love that there. So with that, I do want to take us into the lightning round here, David, to round out the show for our listeners. And on this side, I would love to hear about a tool or a resource that you're utilizing. Maybe it's a product management framework or an AI tool that you're utilizing, but what's really been a game changer for Spice Catalyst this far?
I put together a product market strategy roadmap, which is also up on my website. And it's got 32 elements to it, and it's something that companies follow if they do, for example, their own self-assessments on how well that they're doing.
Gotcha. Incredible. And then last but certainly not least here, David, what is the best piece of advice that you can offer to our listeners tuning in right now, other founders and entrepreneurs who are either just starting out or in the middle of their journey? What can you offer them before we wrap the show up?
I think the number one thing is to have a sense of values and write those values, what are the company's values down, and make sure everyone discusses it and internalizes it, follows it. I think one of the great reasons for Hewlett Packard's success from the time it was started in 1938 until they gave up their values in 1998, during that period of time, they grew 20% a year every year for 50 years in terms of sales. Apple adopted a set of values back in 1978. And in fact, when Steve Jobs came back to the company, he said one of the most important things about Apple is that it has a set of values. And Tim Cook has spoken and written about that issue also. And what that means is when everyone comes together in a room to make a decision, they are all playing from the same set of values, as opposed to one set saying, "Hey, we got to profit at all costs." Another set says, "No, we got to be sure that we have empathy for our customers." So if you all have different values and they conflict with one another, chances for product and or company success over the long term is greatly diminished.
Absolutely incredible. With that right there, ladies and gentlemen, that is going to wrap up another inspiring episode of Founders Future. David, I truly cannot thank you enough for coming on the show and sharing your incredible journey and your insights with us today. Clear as day why you've had such an illustrious and successful career and why that will continue to happen moving forward. So, again, it was an honor and a pleasure having you on the show. Thank you so much. And to our listeners, if you enjoyed this episode, which I know so many of you have, don't forget to subscribe to Founders Future wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. And you can also check out Spice Catalyst at spicecatalyst.com for their training programs like the Building Insanely Great Products Bootcamp. And follow David on LinkedIn at linkedin.com/in/David Fradin. And for more resources and insights, you can visit us here at closers.io, where we are dedicated to helping businesses accelerate their growth through trained appointment setters and world-class marketing systems. Until then, keep climbing, and we will see you on the next one.